4, 3, 2, 1. Walk with me through the cellar door. The storm is coming, Frances. A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Oh, welcome to another Cellar Door Skeptics. For those of you who are watching the video, I have mutton chops. You can't see them super well behind the mic, but I have mutton chops.
And they are a sight to behold.
They are amazing. They were a spontaneous quarantine decision.
I think mutton chops are always a spontaneous quarantine decision.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I don't. I've never felt the urge to do that, so I can't really speak to it.
Well, I feel that's because you can't grow a beard, really. I mean, I don't think I've ever in my life seen you with a beard.
No, it's because my facial hair grows in fairly sparse, and because I'm a fairly light-haired individual to begin with, it really doesn't look thick and bushy at all. So usually I just kind of keep it trimmed down as best I can in between shaving. But yeah, no, like even my old man tells me not to worry about it because it'll happen in a few years, but I'm still like, I don't need it. I really don't need it.
Mine comes in straight up like Joe Dirt. Just two nice points right here and then a nice patch here and nothing in the middle. And so I just have to keep telling people that those are space peanuts.
Oh, I kind of want to see this though. I'm not going to lie.
It's bad. It's bad. I look like no, I'm not going to say that. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Do it.
No, I'm not going to do it.
Do it.
But yeah, it's bad. It just looks like I have issues with, like patchy hair and all that. So like, it's not something that I'm probably ever going to be able to do. And I'm okay with that. My body hair in my family is not something that's just a strong suit. Like I'm as smooth as a Backstreet Boy and there's nothing I can do about it. That's just kind of how I leave it.
And from the neck down, I look like a bloody Neanderthal. Like it's heinous. I'm Eastern European from the neck down, but I have the facial hair patterns of like a prepubescent 13-year-old. It's annoying.
I would freeze to death at 31 degrees Fahrenheit.
If necessary, I could probably run around naked at that time, and you wouldn't know.
Oh, because you're Canadian. It's a Canadian.
Well, there's also that. But I mean, on the one hand, it would be nice to run around going and actually have it mean something. Cheapest cosplay ever is what I'm trying to say.
That would be awesome.
The horror.
Well, you can wear the sash or the belt. Because I can't imagine you'd be that hairy that it cover your junk up. So.
Okay,
anyway,
we're not going to go down that road because I'm going to put the explicit tag on in 0.2 seconds.
Moving past that. So tonight we're going to have another kind of lighthearted episode. But the first thing I wanted to talk about tonight was specifically the Trump disinfectant comment from about a week and a half ago.
Oh.
We're gonna have that conversation. It doesn't have to be very long, but I think it's fair. And so I guess what I'm going to do in the spirit of playing fair is I'll let the two of you give your opinions before I do mine, because I may get on a soapbox, I may not. You never know.
Of course you will. Of course you will. I don't know, mine's pretty straightforward. I've already had a couple of arguments with people here and there about this, and in the end, it's the leader of the free world, the most powerful man, technically the most powerful man on the planet, not prepared, not ready for some of the most important press conferences of his presidency, making conjectures, medical conjectures, things that are just unhealthy, unsafe, and unsupported by medical science. Those are all major problems. And so I think the media blowout of everybody saying that he wanted people to inject bleach directly in their bloodstream, obviously that's exaggerating. And I find it funny to make fun of him, just like we make fun of everything else. And a lot of people are saying, well, that's not what he meant. It's like, yeah, I know what he kind of meant. But these are the kinds of things that he shouldn't even remotely be saying. Any kind of thing like this, it should be locked down solid, 100%. Absolutely true before he walks to the podium to say anything like that, because of the importance of what he's saying. And on top of that, any medical device that he gives should be deferred to the experts that he has, Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx, and all of those people should be the ones making the very specific things, and he should be concentrating on maybe the methodology of keeping all the people in their homes or whatever. So that was my perspective on that. But I also like the soapbox that Tanner's probably going to go on. I'm guessing. This is
you don't know, buddy.
This is a guess, but I just personally I think that it's funny watching the people who defend him in these these little snafus of language that he's making something. It's an honest mistake. He's not directly. I don't think he thinks that far ahead. He's not directly intoning that we should do this. It's just like his pure id is out in the environment, and it's in the open, and that's kind of what this was. Is him just thinking, but he shouldn't have been thinking out loud in this kind of situation. But anyways, that I find it funny that people are saying like you can't hold every word, you can't hold everything to it. You're slandering him and you're being too aggressive. But also that we shouldn't take him at his word when he is talking about grabbing women by the pussy and all of the other horrible things that he is on camera, on tape, all of these other horrible things that he has said. Like, this is the guy who has told you all these other things that are really bad, that was like, listen, don't, so should we just cast aside most of what the president says and just kind of look at what he's trying to say? I just find the inconsistency in the arguments an issue. And so like this one here, I don't think the liberal media should have attacked him as gratuitously as they did. But let's face it, if President Obama had said something similar to this, Fox News would have done exactly what the Washington Post did. So like, I don't think it's apples to oranges. I just think this is our political system, and he should have the insulatory behavior to try to keep himself from doing something dumb like this in the future.
Keith?
You guys make yourselves out to be the heroes in every damn movie, and so far the best meme I've seen is that dude who's like poking the American flag with a stick, and it says, "Come on, save the world like you always do in the movies." Because
I've seen the one with what is it? Who's the fat guy on SpongeBob?
Patrick.
Like, yeah, he's
I
don't know, it's Patrick. Yeah, he's like doing like super science in like the movies, and then in real life he's hammering the nail into his forehead. Like that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, I first heard the clip in kind of a joke that somebody had used it to dub over a scene from another movie that a friend of mine had sent to me, and I'm listening to this and I'm like, this can't be real. This was like somebody just pieced this together, right? And then I found the original, and I'm going, oh my god. This is a thing that has actually happened in the year 2020. We have a leader who is just espousing that much ignorance and acting like it's somehow going to save everyone, to be that folksy and whimsical and that completely devoid of any sort of understanding as to how these things work, because it's easier to just throw out whatever nonsense, see what sticks, and then carry on because somehow profit. It's like the underpants gnome. Step 1, steal underpants. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, profit. It just there's no tangible next step. It's just all whatever. I'll just wing it. I'll get out there. I can do that. I'm good at that.
Harness the chaos, and he's done it his entire life, and he's had enough privilege to protect him. And
nobody's ever called him on his shit that he couldn't squash.
Now they are. So he just was like, I don't wanna.
But now that he can't use his, lawyers to go after anybody and everybody who says something mean about the poor widow man, he'll just sit there and be like, no, you're fake news. No, he just gets to sit there and act like a bully. And I'm sorry, but that little tirade about, yeah, we can do this. Yeah, they can, take the injected disinfectant or whatever. Like, somebody's talking about that, right? And you're looking into that. And I'm just sitting there, I'm going, what? This is happening. This is not satire TV on Saturday night. This is like a world leader behaving like this. And the fact that his followers are still defending him and bending over backwards in the mental gymnastics, it just shows the deeper commitment these people to have to whatever the hell it is he represents for them. And I'm really starting to struggle, because there's the cognitive dissonance should be like inducing a migraine for so many of his followers, but it's not, and it's staggering.
Fair enough. I'm going to play the clip real quick.
So I asked Bill a question that probably some of you are thinking of if you're totally into that world, which I find to be very interesting. So supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light.
And we're going to avoid
And
talking
I think
about
you said
ultraviolet light
that
for
hasn't
now.
been checked,
Like,
but you're gonna
staying
check.
away from that.
And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right. And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see. But the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful.
It's so stupid.
So
how do people think that anything
okay,
intelligible
All right.
is said there?
calm down.
Can you bring up the clip from that total burn from Billy Madison, where the guy's like, "What you said made absolutely no sense," and it
That was a
point in
meme.
your ramblings?
That was a gif I saw a lot this week.
So
Yeah, I can imagine why.
all right. So here's okay. So here's my take, right? So there's been a lot of discussion, and there's a lot. I have a lot of people that are conservative on my Facebook page, right? And so a lot of people are very dismayed by this, especially because, again, you just listen to it. He does not, in any way, shape, or form, tell you to inject bleach or Lysol or disinfectant. He doesn't tell you that.
Nope.
And so a lot of people are dismayed by this, right? And I agree, actually. And this is a little different than what you thought it was going to be. I think it's bullshit. I think the media is pulling this out of proportion. I think they're using this as a way to attack Trump when we should be working to unify. And again, whatever. If I sound like a Trumpite, fine. But I'm telling you right now that they are taking this so far and people are making such a big deal about it. And it's like, look, I get he misspoke 100%. I don't disagree with that. But for Christ's sake, why are we focused on this? There's so many other things Trump has done wrong. We literally could focus on all those things, And so I think this is a media
clicks.
Exactly. It's a media ploy, and like you said earlier, this is where I'm disgusted. Is I don't care if they would have jumped on Obama for it. I don't care. They jumped on him for mustard stains on his tie.
In his brown suit, he wore a brown suit. And
yep.
Planet started on fire.
Gotcha. Hold on though. Hold on. I'm gonna bring it back. Hold on. I agree with you that it's a double-edged sword, but who's better here? Look, our candidate is not much better than Trump right now. Fair enough, right? None of us think that guy's. And maybe Keith does. I don't know. Maybe Keith was Biden.
No, not him. But I do think that
he just wants the fire. He just wants the
just-
fire to stop down here so it doesn't spread up there.
I mean, that would be nice. That would definitely be nice. But my biggest thing is that I'd like your Supreme Court to not be filled by little pseudo Palpatine-esque clones of Scalia.
Fair enough. And so, excuse me. This is where this is where I do disagree with him. I think we should leave it alone in terms of saying he's claiming we're going to inject ourselves or he's saying that. That's stupid. Anybody who's going to do that should take a goddamn intelligence test and you have to be held accountable at some point for your actions. And this goes back to all the way back to his remarks in Charlotte. Is it Charlottesville, North Carolina, or wherever they had the neo-Nazi rally? And essentially, he's like, there's good people on both sides, and I think that was a very bad statement, and that's different than this, right? That's something you jump over. That's something we attack because he's essentially passively saying something different. In this case, he's merely suggesting disinfectant could be used. Now, hold on. I'm not done. I told you it's a soapbox. I'll let y'all go first. So hold on a second. So the difference, though, is that we can get angry at how he portrayed himself. We can get angry for the verbiage he used. Because in fairness, you would never inject disinfectant into your body. Because when science comes up with whatever chemical could be based off disinfectant, which I'm assuming that's what he's talking about, if that happened, it would not be called disinfectant. No science community would ever call it disinfectant and be like, yep, we're now going to give you a vaccine to put disinfectant into your body. So again, he misspoke extremely horribly. There's a difference between this and grabbing the pussy type thing. This is completely different situation. And this one, in fairness to him, it's him talking because he doesn't like silence, right? If we take psychology classes or these other things, it's him filling that void with certain things, and he's hoping a few things land or enough get thrown in there that you can't catch him, right? And that's the idea here. So the media needs to get the fuck off this and leave this shit alone and move on from this. Because if we do get a cure, it's not going to be called disinfectant. It's never going to come close to that. And anybody that honestly is going to inject disinfectant into themselves, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you. At that point, like, either we have an extremely controlled life or we let stupid people die sometimes.
Well, one of the things that what he's doing is that he's using kind of like the things that he learns about or whatever. So he has access to this, what many people would say, some of the smartest people on earth as far as the people that advise the president. I don't know if I would go that far because a lot of those people have left and resigned. Yeah, they but like the people at the head of the American Medical Association, everybody, like, they're giving really great information. And this is the study that he talked about that he didn't want to talk about, the ultraviolet light thing. Like, he's seeing these random studies, he's outlining things that are interesting and unique, and they're just starting out, but there's no like real solid science. But he needs to not talk about those things and talk about real legitimate science or defer to the experts. And he didn't do that. And so he basically said this, kind of fringe outside the edge thing that he always does. And he does that a lot of times when whatever the Fox News headline is, whatever the Fox and Friends headline, whatever, something that's kind of currently viral and right-wing media is popular, he'll kind of just wheedle that in there. It's like, hey, I saw this is cool, but like there's very little verification. And that's kind of what people who are looking at this saying, he's not looking at real science, he's just kind of going with what the internet says is interesting. And then the people that took this to like injecting bleach and all that's the end of the spectrum where it starts to leave the real world and become satire or hyperbole. And I mean, there is a danger to that. I will agree.
The thing though for me that's really getting to me is just like he's basically like a walking, talking Gish Gallop. He's just spouting as much misinformation and putting as much whatever he can out. Possibly, as a result of. Well, possibly because of what Tanner was saying, he's just trying to fill silence by just, talking. And in doing so, he's taking, there's a phrase, a little knowledge can be dangerous, is that, if something sounds even slightly true, you might just assume it's true because you're like, oh, well, something about that sounds familiar. I mean, I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of this, just because sometimes we'll just fill in a gap, or we'll just jump to the first quickest assumption without latching or seeking clarity would be a better way to put it, I think.
Well, when they come from people that he sees as an authority, then he'll give them more credence sometimes than they deserve.
Well, that's its own issue. But he's spouting all of this, and I mean, when he's talking about the UV light and taking it inside, and I'm resisting the urge to talk about vampires on that one, and that just.
reminds
there's
me
just
of-
such a misunderstanding behind all of that, and he's just trying to do like press release after press release after press release, and it's like, stop. I know that
one every
people are,
day. Yeah.
yeah, and I know that people are like looking to you and all of that for guidance, but instead of trying to give them false hope, maybe try to like slow yourself down and be the rational, well thought out leader that everybody kind of needs you to step up and be, bud.
You don't need to be the number one story every day.
No,
but
you don't.
that's what he would like to be.
Yeah, I don't think in this case he was attempting that though. And look, I don't usually I sit around with Trump, man. That's that's not my
I'm
thing.
sure this is killing you.
Well, no, I don't disagree with your position. I agree. I understand it. And I don't know, taking him too lightly, but definitely, we did, or the liberal left did go a little off the rails.
Yes, and that's what makes us look fucking stupid. And that's I'm sorry. Like, this is like the Bernie Bros shit all fucking over again. Like when we talk about Bernie Bros, and none of us on here are Bernie Bros, but we all supported Bernie. Well, I guess Keith can't support Bernie technically because he's Canadian, but
you can support him.
Yeah, there you go. Financially,
I can spread the word.
There you go. But you know what I'm saying. Like, those are the people that ruin that shit. And no, we're not going to sing "The Bird Is the Word," please. So don't do that. I'm glad I have the power in this room, and you cannot do that. But anyway, you don't know that song?
I know the chorus, like a tiny bit of it, but I'm not.
That's the whole song. This is the whole song, dude.
Oh.
There's almost no lyrics.
Like 3 words.
Moving on, because I don't want that song in my head, and I'm not going to play that for the audience. Moving on.
Go ahead.
So, anyway, that's my whole point. Is we can all day long go after Trump on things, and I'm just saying, why don't we find a more valid reason to do it? That's all.
Or let this be a short story as opposed to weeks long.
It doesn't. It was unnoteworthy. Sorry.
The one thing that I think though is like it's easy to latch onto something like this just because it's a simple, easily shown mistake, whereas for a lot of other arguments against him, it's really difficult because there's layers and nuance, and after about the second minute in, their eyes start to glaze over and they start going la 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 listening, because they're bored, they really just don't care, and it's mentally taxing, so they just kind of tune you out. Whereas with something like this, like, it's easy to keep the outrage going because, let's face it, we should still all be outraged that he's the president. But again,
well, let's be outraged about better things. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so speaking of lockdown and the coronavirus, this is a news story that probably hasn't gotten enough circulation. And I only say this because here the BBC is claiming the coronavirus in New Zealand has no community cases as the lockdown eases, right?
Yeah, it was like 8 or something like that. Like, it was super low.
Yeah. And so I thought this might be a fun small segment we could kind of talk through, because when we look at other things in other places in the world, right? I mean, New Zealand's small compared to America, in fairness. It's small compared to Canada, though maybe the population size is the same. I don't know.
I think having cities like Toronto and Windsor and
maybe
it's still
maybe. All right, fine. I'll grant a few more people in Canada than before. Those flapping heads.
We've been over this. How many people are in California? Same number as Canada.
Yeah, and so we also have New Zealand, the newest landmass on the planet that I know of. Like continental landmass. Most of the New Zealand, they say there's like a subcontinent below the ocean for New Zealand, and they can't quite count it, but it's like one of the newest landmasses. It's pretty cool.
Before we move on, just quick, New Zealand's population is just shy of 5 million total.
All right, fine.
That's
funny. Close to Canada's population.
BC and Alberta, maybe.
Round up by the nearest 100.
No, it's definitely not
million.
that. They only have like 35 or 36, right?
35 million, yes. Very good.
Okay.
Okay, the nearest 30. Either way.
There you go. Yeah, they're not that high. Come on, I'm not that far off.
All right, so
Moving,
New Zealand is saying we're clean. We're clean.
yeah,
We
that's
got
that's
this.
what they're claiming, is that they're able to, in their quarantine, right? And the idea here is, and this is what we do in business, in my business at least, is we talk through, hey, when positive things happen or certain bad things happen, what do you do? So we have like post meetings, for a project. So afterwards we go through it. We talk through what are the big issues, what happened well, what didn't happen well. In this case, if we were to do this for that, here are some success stories, right? This is where we want to focus to say, okay, hey, this is what they did. This is what worked for them. Yes, we are a larger scale, but if this is what worked, why would we not follow that? Right?
Yeah.
So they are still forcing people to remain at home as much as they can. They're going to open some of the non-essential businesses, education, activity, that type of thing. They're going to open up their economy more than what they were. They have reported fewer than 1,500 confirmed cases and 19 deaths. So that's pretty low.
Yeah. Given their population, it's pretty low. I mean, one of the things they have is that the country itself is pretty decently distanced from its centers of population. So like if you can imagine nice little tight little towns and then a long ways before the next one. And so like what that does is that naturally insulates you through geography. That if you can kind of isolate it into a small town, like Wuhan was a big city, but like easily containable because outside of the major city of Wuhan, there really wasn't a whole bunch more because China is still a pretty rural country. And so it gave them some strength. It's basically putting a Simpsonian bubble over the top of that city, to do that. And Zealand obviously is naturally strategy wise set up to do that. So it helps them as far as that. What we have here, in a very short distance, you can be from massive concentrations of humans to a new massive concentration of humans. And so like things go a lot quicker, but this is a nice small scale study.
Yeah. So if you look here and how did they respond? They closed the borders, right? They enforced quarantines on all people coming into the country. They brought in stringent lockdown. And this is where I'm going to, in a second, I want to come back to quarantine on anything that arrived in the country. I want to come back to that because this is a question I didn't see in the article that we could talk about. They implemented extensive testing and contact tracing operations. So essentially, if you tested positive, they traced it back to all the people and quarantined all those people. They closed beaches, water parks, playgrounds, offices, schools, bars, restaurants, including for takeaway and delivery. So obviously that's a lot more than America.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty tough sell. But my question is, so they shut down these things, but in some countries, like in Italy, there were consequences to breaking the rules. And so the United States, like essentially, if a business is open, there's a chance that like somebody's going to come in and be like, "Listen, you guys can't be open. You have to shut down." I haven't really heard too many cases of that happening. But like if you're at like I saw images in Arizona of like the beaches filled with stupid people, just dumb, stupid people. And there was like thousands of them. And they were just being dumb and stupid in the sun. And nobody was telling them to get the heck out of there. And so like I don't know if this in New Zealand, if they were actually using, some kind of curfew measures to curtail such behavior. In Italy, they've seen really great measures of that. It was, a huge conflict. They were actively telling people to get the heck out of Dodge. And it was like, you can imagine the MAGA AKs being like, "You can't tell me what to do. Don't step on snack." And so like I would assume New Zealand probably doesn't have that aggressive of a red hat wearing group of people, but like I mean, that could be the case where you would have like, people completely, totally confrontationally responding to any kind of use of violence or use of force. Well, in the U.S., that obviously wouldn't work. There would be just chaos. So, like, were they able to use that and to help curtail that would be another example that would kind of support what happened in Italy and some of the other European countries that saw huge spikes really quickly.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things here, they're still telling people to stick to your bubble. They're telling, they went aggressive. The one thing I wanted to come back to, and this is where, we talked a little bit about it on the show 3, maybe 4 weeks ago. But, when we closed the borders, we only closed the borders to some extent, right? We only were quarantining to some extent. We still had ocean freighters, freight coming in because we import. And, in fairness, Trump would tell you, well, if we didn't have all this outside business and we did everything in America, we wouldn't have this problem, right? But on the opposite side, if we were the ones exporting, we'd lose all our economy too, because we wouldn't be able to export. And so that's the thing, is we didn't close our borders per se in the same manner that they did. But again, it doesn't actually address if stuff was able to come in or out or how they handled it. Because if you think about it, if you are able to bring your dock in, unload your containers all by yourself, and you didn't have any interaction with anybody else, and then they sat there for 3 to 5 days, they would then essentially, the surface stuff would be dead. Then you could move it.
Mm-hmm.
And
the only thing you run into is just perishable items, things that are coming in for feeding. And so, like, I would assume that New Zealand is such a rocky climb that I doubt they have the ability to create all the food to feed the entire country. And so they probably still had to deal with, the logistics of food and stuff like that and perishables. But I may be completely wrong. And so if anyone knows better than me, but my guess is that from everything that I've ever seen of New Zealand, it's always a very rocky and volcanic climate. So like, I assume that they're not doing like mass farming or something along those lines, so they can like easily feed all of their people.
Exactly. So I don't know. Like I said, I think this is an interesting study, right? And that's the idea here is how do we look at things that are better for us? How do we look at things maybe that can help pertain to us in the future? And when we talk about opening all these options up, it's silly to me. Like Texas is going back a day earlier than May 1st anyway. It's just like, well, you got to be first in Texas for. They don't, and they don't even have the best steaks. Damn it!
All the governors are the really conservative governors are trying to one up each other, because the first one that opens up gets like I was the first guy to open. So like, let's say there isn't a second wave. Let's say we really did, kick this thing pretty good right out of the gate in the first run. The conservative governor who opened up first, and there wasn't like this huge negative backlash, he gambled and he won. Now, if there's a big, nasty second wave that comes through here, there's going to be a political, consequence to that. They're betting on the former. I'm betting on the latter. I really do think that this is going to be dangerous come summer, but we'll see what happens. I don't really know what's going to happen, but like rushing to the gates is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
How about Keith? Have they released any restrictions in your area at all?
No, they've kind of kept things pretty much standard, but we have, as things have been increasing in Alberta. I was just reading something on a Facebook thing about some of the fines that they've been levying. Just see if I can pull that up here. For not social distancing, there we go. So there's so if you're not abiding by the social distancing recommendations, you could face upwards of like $1,000 fine. So it's they're still recommending, everybody keeps at least 6 feet from each other, limit the number of times you leave your house for errands, try to limit grocery store visits, try having only one person in the household do their shopping, try to shop at less busy times, which is kind of hilarious given that hours are cut in most of those places, and so everybody's kind of funneled into a smaller time period, but okay. Order online, go for a walk in your neighborhood or park while maintaining distance from others, avoid overcrowding in elevators or other enclosed spaces, follow mandatory restrictions on gatherings. I believe it's no more than 15 people at once. So like 15 Canadians. I guess it's like 10 Americans or something like that. these days, but
I didn't
it's that
say
conversion.
it, but I was
It's that
thinking
conversion.
it.
It's that conversion. It gets you because the Canadian dollar is worth like garbage right now. It's fine. I was looking and wash hands, sanitize
Well, it's like
hands.
it's like Saudi oil.
Yeah.
Well, you saw that post I sent y'all. In South Haven, it was 97 cents a gallon.
Yeah. Well, gas has not been this cheap here in a long time. I don't have the time to do my little formula calculation, whatever. But yeah, down here, like we haven't had gas that was under $1 or under 90 cents per liter, and a liter is like a quarter of a gallon. So that would be like almost about $4 a gallon, roughly. We haven't seen it that low in a long time, and now it's I guess it would be like $2 to $2.50 a gallon up here, which for us is cheap, and it's hilarious given that we take pride in our oil, but we have some pretty damn expensive gas.
Well, darn socialists and all your socialisms
and all of your like welfares and your health cares.
Yeah, in times like this. So I don't know. I think New Zealand is an interesting case. I think Canada's
Absolutely
probably doing things just a little bit slower, but probably better. I would say that New England and so the the Union half of America is taking its time and trying to do the scientific thing. The the Confederate half of America is just recklessly running towards the Alamo, hoping that everything is okay when they get there.
Seems legit.
I don't know. And Johnny Appleseed is planting apples or something. Everybody's happy about
Is that in Canada? Are they planting apples in Canada? Can apples
Maybe.
grow in Canada? Do you have is like apples native to Canada?
You can't grow apples in permafrost, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just saying
Not
Washington
all
State.
of Canada has permafrost. But
Washington State's
of
pretty
us.
close to Canada, and they're like the apple capital of the world.
Yeah,
Of
and
the
they opted
United
out.
States.
They opted out of the Honeycrisp, and that entire state has been pooped on as far as apple consumption in the last 10 years.
You know why? Because Honeycrisp suck. They
Yeah,
are the worst apple. You should not eat it.
Have you had the Cosmic Crisp, which is the new Washington? Is it any good?
It's okay. I don't like really sweet apples, so I think it ultra sweet apple is silly to me. Like I don't get the logic in it. I mean, you don't have to eat something that's bitter. I get it, but like I like the
sour.
normal taste of an apple. Like I don't like my kids put sugar and cinnamon. Not me. Don't do anything. Just give me an apple, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, so apparently apples are one of Canada's biggest fruit exports. I think they're number 2 behind blueberries. So yeah, I just don't know what kinds we have. That's actually kind of curious for me now. Now you got me wondering. Thanks.
So
Anyway, so I'm kind of we've exhausted that. Whatever. It is what it is. You know, I think there's some things that we can learn from. And I don't know. I think one of the biggest things that we can learn from that is how do we continue to prevent it, and how can we slowly reopen the economy without crashing it? Because again, how many other proposals are out there where we could be changing how people get paid instead of giving businesses loans? And I've said this before, and this is kind of moving into what we're going to talk about next. But if you think about it, if we started giving everybody UBI instead of a one-time payment and stop bailing out the companies and let them basically ride on neutral and let them freeze all their loans, freeze all the interest, freeze all the loans on the bank, do all these other things. And then if we had to bail certain companies out, it would be like the loan companies and these other different things. If that's what we have to bail out, it would be a smaller dollar percentage than what we're doing right now. And then everybody would benefit. I mean, can you imagine if your house payment just stopped? I wouldn't need $4,000 a month, right? You don't have to give me $4,000 a month to live on if I don't have to pay my house payment. You know, oh, you have an outstanding credit card debt. If as long as you don't continue to rack up credit card debt, you stop it, do I need an extra $500 a month to pay that? I don't know what your credit card bills are. Mine are not that high, but
Neither are mine, thankfully. It's taken a while, but they're not anymore.
But you get what I'm saying is like there's a lot of things that we could do different because guess what it's now leading into? There's an article here. And essentially what this article is saying, I guess I got to allow it. Hold on. I'll deal with it in a minute. Essentially what this article is saying is that this lady got her personal protection loan, right?
Her company did.
Her company did, her small business. So she went to her employees and said, hey, we're going to pay, I'm going to pay your wages. And they got pissed off because unemployment was giving them more money than they were normally making.
Yeah.
Which if they don't stay working, then what'll happen is if they don't stay working, what'll happen then is the fact that we will see businesses get stuck with loans they're going to default on because then they're going to go out of business, And then
basically, I'd say, basically, my understanding is that essentially the company itself could not continue to pay the employees their wages without the small business loan, this personal protection loan that the small businesses had access to. But the employees who, once they had access to the unemployment, that $600, I believe it's $600 a month or $600 a week. It's $600 a week. I thought it was. I vaguely remember it was $600 a week, and I was really surprised. That's a lot of money. It's an extra $2,400 a month, almost essentially. And but anyways, they. I
don't think it's that high.
I know that's what it was really surprising, and I don't think that was that high either. But it was a. I know a couple people who actually have been getting their unemployment now, and they're making more money than they were making before, and that's kind of the situation here. Is that a lot of these
you're
people,
right, $600 a week.
A week, yeah, it was a really big stuff. So you get what you normally would get from the state. The state has a certain amount of money that you would get, a percentage based on your former paycheck, and then there's an extra windfall of $600 a week, an extra $24 a month. And that $600 a week is, in some cases, what people make for the entire week. And so, they're essentially doubling their paychecks in some cases. It's a lot of money. And so this is kind of a windfall. And so people were seeing it as like, awesome, I'm going to have 2 or 3 months of no work and the best paycheck I've ever had. And some of these small businesses are trying to stay in existence because they won't be in existence if they don't get this loan. But there's a catch-22 there, is that if they do stay in business, they have to use that loan to pay those employees. And those employees, by getting that paycheck, can no longer get that higher boosted unemployment. And so they are not happy, but the business gets to stay in business. So they've kind of created this vacuum of really weird scenarios. And I did read this, and I was really surprised that it was as extravagant of or as vast of a difference between the two different groups. So the employees were really mad, and she was upset, but also really happy that she can keep her business in existence. So it's weird that we're gonna pretty much put that choice between people. It's let your company go down, but let all your employees finally make a decent paycheck. Or
the question that I have, when it's coming to these employment checks and all of that people would be getting for work, are they taxed on it when they receive it, or does it go towards their taxes for the next year? Do they have to claim it?
Yes, but you do not have to have taxes taken out. You can take them in the end. So the first time I was on unemployment, I was on there for a month and a half, and I didn't do taxes. And at the end of the year, it didn't matter. The second time I was on unemployment, I was on it for 4 months, and I didn't do taxes because I didn't see a big deal. But because it was 4 months of back taxes, I essentially lost my return the next year completely with kids, and it's because I had kids.
Right. Okay. So basically, it kind of on paper, it kind of seems like you're getting a little bit more, but you're not paying taxes off of that off the bat. So it's kind of maybe tuck part of it away so that when come tax time, this way you're not totally losing your return or whatever, and you're not up shit creek, so to speak.
It's very sugary, this money.
Yeah.
So the American people and just humans in general, when given the opportunity to save money, do not. But when enrolled into mandatory, you are automatically enrolled into this money saving scheme. You will put your money into the 401k via certain percentages every paycheck. surprising, people will actually save for their retirement and for all kinds of stuff. And this is going to be a good example of people like seeing like this windfall. This is awesome. This is great. And, you know, they kind of keep themselves up and floating, you know, with their old paycheck. They, in some cases, were still not even making ends meet with those old paychecks. So like I said, this could be the first time they've ever actually had a net positive. And it turns out that it took, you know, a real actual $15 plus an hour paycheck to make people comfortable and feel safe with their wages. And that's kind of, you know, an example of you know, how basically most people who are working people are not probably getting paid enough money. And this is really an interesting, what I see when I saw this story was that small businesses are essentially put into a chasm of horror. So like small businesses exist specifically for the small people, that, you know, the people and the families who create them, and their employees usually support them. But if an employee is going to see an extra $2,400 a month come into their paycheck, they're like willing to just kill the small business, get the heck out of here. You should die. I want that big paycheck. I'll find another job afterwards or whatever. And so like one of the things I see that could potentially happen here is that like small businesses can't get these loans, or if they don't take the loans because they're going to inconvenience their employees and they let the companies go defunct or whatever the end game is, in the end, we'll have a bunch of small businesses that don't survive this, you know, this downturn. Large companies, surprisingly, a large number of them were actually able to access this money, which some of them gave it back. But unfortunately, it's really disgusting that they took this money. But they're going to survive. They have millions of dollars in the bank. They'll all be just fine. And once the market starts growing, it, you know, Shake Shack, whatever, will sell us shitty burgers. And in the end, you know, those companies will survive, and we will lose a huge chunk of the small business world that was finally starting to grow after the 2008 recession that basically killed off anything that was small, and we had some real organic growth. And so like big companies, big giant companies are going to be concentrating their wealth and concentrating market power even more, because the rich can buy things even when the market's down, which is why they were able to make money. And so like this is, I really wish this was a scenario where the small business would get a loan, great, and the employees would get a little boost, awesome, and like both parties could hit. It's sad to me that one has to lose for the other to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you know what they should have done then? They should have given the businesses a loan and said, okay, hey, this is the difference between what they're getting in unemployment, and because it's going to be the same cost, and we're going to give it to your company and you distribute it, right? And then at that point, then if your company isn't distributing it, then you work for a shit company, right? Like, I mean, like that's a telltale sign. Like our company, so, you know, I guess I have to be careful what I say, but, you know, we received this. we received this. We applied. We had lost 30% of our income in March because of the slowdown in transportation, all sorts of stuff, right? So we did this. We have not laid anybody off that didn't deserve to get fired. We'll just put it this way. There's some hard decisions for certain people. This made it a little easier, but for the most part,
we've got that same thing going on right now.
We're not terminating anybody. And like, even as of last week, I had to go to Indiana to work on a project while one of our clients was shut down. We paid our employees, even though that company's not paying us for 2 weeks. We paid every one of our employees in that facility, and they had to come to work, but it was just light work. You could wear jeans, you could wear a t-shirt. We were blaring music. I bought pizza for everybody. You know, you got paid 8 hours. We probably worked 6 hours. You know, very relaxed environment. And then we gave everybody a Friday off, paid, right? Woo. You know, and that was because they worked.
Sugar daddy.
No, it's because we put goals out there, and if we hit our goals, which the goal is this is 5 days worth of work. Can you squeeze this into 4? If you can get paid for 5. And they did it, right? You know, like,
awesome.
And that's what happens. You motivate people a little bit. They'll take. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Having a 3-day weekend really is inconsequential now because it can't go anywhere or do anything other than I had one more day to play video games, I guess. You know, I ended up working half the day on Friday anyway. But, you know, what they should have done is something like that. And so like our company, and again, I don't know all the dollars. I do have the payment program we can bring up in a second. There's one more thing in this article I wanted to cover, but I can bring that up in a second. I don't know exactly what dollar amount our company got, but I know our company was committed to not letting employees go if we don't have to.
Mhm.
And, we closed one of our facilities down and moved the majority of the employees to the other facility, right? That's what we did. And we had a couple of voluntary layoffs, and then we had some temps that didn't show back up because people are scared of the virus, right? And I think the difference is here, two things. One, we should be offering companies more money to offer bonuses for essentiality, right? So like the difference should be is if you're going to sit home, but you're guaranteed a job out of this, that $600, I get it. Yes, that's important. But at the exact same time, unless you're in a dirt-end job, $600 extra is not that much, right? And I'll be honest, I don't think everybody's getting that $600 every week. I think it's up to $600. Again, we'd have to go through more research, man, because my friend, she's in this scenario right now. Her company is going back to work as of yesterday. And
Jesus.
And she works in a daycare facility, essentially. And it's a 501c3. And she makes X amount of dollars, and she was pulling in $3 an hour more to stay in unemployment, right?
Yeah.
So she's in this which is why I looked this up, by the way. Because I didn't believe it. I'll be honest. Like, I've never seen unemployment benefits benefit anyone. Really, like when I had my unemployment checks, they were nothing. Like, I still had to borrow money, cash my 401k out, all sorts of stuff. Like, it never covered enough. So we'll have to look that up in a minute. But
I'm on a New York Times website, and it says when you add the $600 to the national average unemployment payment, which is $371 a week at the end of 2019, the replacement rate goes from 38% to almost 100%. In other words, the amount that it would take for Congress to replace the average American worker receiving unemployment would have earned. Basically, what they're saying is like it sounds like it is an injection of 600, and 600 flat amount is what I've seen in multiple places throughout this through the article here. While an extra $600 a week would replace 100% of the average national income, the additional benefit would differ depending on where people are, where they typically earn. So like what it is that $600 is just boom, as far as I'm understanding, it's in there, and then your state has whatever small amount that it usually gives is that is added. So that amount is variable between the different states. So some states don't give you very much, like 30-40% of your paycheck. Some states give you 60-70% of your paycheck, and so that will be the variable. That $600 is during the pandemic, I believe.
Yes, it's only for the thing, because my friend, that was what we discussed, right? Is there, and in fairness, my friend has a real legitimate reason why they don't want to go back, and it's because they live with elderly folks, and they have their own separate little apartment, but they live with them. And just that risk right there could be high. And one of them has cancer. So it's this, so it's like one of those things where, like that
sleep
person's
in your car every night. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, in my opinion, and again, we could divulge here, but like, in my opinion, we should be giving, like, that person should be granted extended unemployment rights, for what they want, because of the fact that they don't want to come back. And if you can justify it, I have a hard time forcing those type of people back to work, right? Now, maybe they should still lose their job, but maybe their unemployment benefits should last twice as long instead of just, the average time frame. Because here's the thing. If we want to encourage economic growth, we can't just let unemployment go through this stage where they're handing everybody this cash, because people are going to look at it in a narrow point of view as, for the next 3 months or 2 months, I'm going to get an extra, I'm going to go from $16 an hour to $22 an hour, which is huge. That is huge, in fairness, for somebody that makes that. That's huge. But the difference is when they leave that, are they going to be able to get hired in at any other job at $16 an hour? So if you don't need that extra money, right? So like if your spouse was working and it's now not working, I get it. If you're both having to go back to work and now pay for babysitting, I get it. I get that. I understand that. But all of this does is bring up a conversation about what? And where's boys when you need them?
Yeah,
because this is the UBI conversation from hell.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, in the end, what we're really looking at is just all of the losses of the small businesses that can't survive this. That's going to decrease the total amount of jobs out there. We're coming from the best job market in history of this country to now rivaling the Depression era. And so the question is, do you take that $600, let your company that you were in die, and then after this pandemic time period ends, do you have a job to go back to? Does the market exist anymore? All these types of factors that are, long-term stuff. So can you take that short-term cash influx, or would you be willing to have a consistent job in the long run? Once again, another example of you can't dangle sugar cubes in front of humans. Like they're going to take the short. This is just a natural thing when it comes to the human, like the hominid species. We see the sugary fruit. That's what we go for. That's the things that we used to eat, and and our brains are wired and so far. That's one of the reasons why sugar is such a massively dominant thing in our society. Like that's the same kind of thing here. It's like you get that short-term dopamine burst from having a nice fat paycheck, and you maybe grab a couple more things that you didn't expect you'd be able to grab. I've seen people post online. It's like, got my paycheck, got my stimulus check. I'm gonna go buy a hot tub on Craigslist. Like, I don't want to be a jerk, but don't. Those kinds of things are, some people are comfortable enough where they are as far as their finances. And so like, hopefully people make the right decision when it comes to this. And I hope that's all these small businesses that I'm no longer in that world can survive it, because I mean, I am so happy that my father and I made the decision and we did to get out of the small business world, and he got to retire, and we got the most money for all of our stuff that we probably would have been able to, because I don't have to worry as much about him. He stays home and he protects himself. Surprisingly, I really thought he was going to resist this and be like, I ain't staying in my damn house. And like, because he's just kind of a tough dude, but he and my mother have really taken this to heart. I'm really proud of them being, serious about making sure that they stay safe so they can be around for their grandkids. It's important. And so, I mean, I absolutely love the fact that they've done that, but like, it's one of those things that like seeing a small business hurt. Small business, when it dies, it really kills a lot of America. I don't care what anyone says. That trickle down shit is not coming down to the little guy.
Oh, never. It never will.
Yeah. So this is the actual document that they had. And I don't know, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it because it's a lot of gibberish. But we do have it in there. Oh, sorry, it's a lot. I read through this earlier today and I was just like, holy crap. Like
they wrote it at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So I mean, first off, like it's exactly like the tax plan that was passed last year or 2 years ago. It's just, I mean, they wrote it at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Nobody really understands where the loopholes are yet. Nobody understands the logics and the logistics of all of this stuff. Like they wrote it overnight almost. And so like, there's going to be all kinds of problems. The first round, like I said, Shake Shack and Potbelly got these huge loans. These are nationwide companies. Ruth's Chris they made $500 million and they had $50 million in the bank, and they got a $10 million loan. Like like the next round that they've recently done has been a little bit better for that kind of thing, and no publicly traded companies, that kind of stuff. But like still, there's all kinds of word salad in here that some people who have an accountant that they pay full time who's going to read this thing and be like, ooh, and find all these spots where they can get money from their companies. Like
I'll be honest, I hope most companies have an accountant they pay full time, because that's like, if you're a 2 or 3 person company, fine, I get it. But like my company is 160 people, and we definitely are not publicly traded, and we are not over a $500 million.
If you're over 50 people, I do think that you can put that 60, 70, 80, $100,000 a year salary into an accountant that can maximize your taxes. I think getting below the 50 mark, I don't like all of the machine shops and people that I've run into over the years, 20, 30, 40 person companies. I don't know too many of them who have an accountant on hand to make sure that these guys can read this stuff and just be like, boom, 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 boom. I know exactly what I need to do. Like that's a hard thing to have. And so like, cause I mean, 90% of the year they're standing around picking at their starfish, trying to,
Oh, there's an image
like,
and a half.
like those folks aren't, I mean, they just, and then they have crunch time where the rubber meets the road and they, you know, they make their money.
Yeah. And so, so essentially here, the loans are for payroll costs, benefit costs, which is good, right? And so like any company that you get paid for and you lose your health insurance, you should immediately turn them in because that's BS. You know, like the idea behind this is to continue benefit payments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interest on mortgage obligations, rent under lease agreements, and utilities, right? So they talk about payroll costs capped at $100,000 annually. So essentially, if you make more than $100,000, they're only going to cover $100,000 of that person's salary, which is probably good because again, you know, like in a small business, if there's only 2 or 3 of you, you could probably say you could probably, if you're, you know, you do it right, you could take home $300,000-400,000 if you wanted, right? If your business did that, if you didn't reinvest in your business and you could take that money home. I mean, I worked for a small company that was 20 people and the owners paid themselves less than 50 or 60 grand a year, but they got house payments out of the business. You know, they paid their cars out of the business. You know, when you added it all up, they were making $150,000, $175,000 a year. Again, fine. That's your business. That's how you want to do it. I think it's shitty that you used, you know, and I'm calling you out, witness inspection. Screw you if you ever listen to the podcast. You know, your highest paid employee was $16 an hour that wasn't on payroll. I mean, come on. You know, like everybody else's family. I mean, it's ridiculous.
There's something wrong with that. Yeah.
But again, at the exact same time, it's still their company. They can do what they want, and that's fine. You know, that's fine. We're not going to get into that discussion tonight because that's a whole socialized.
Oh,
it's a whole different.
It's business ethics. It's business ethics, and you know, part of the problems with capitalism is being able to just swing your money around, and the people who have the money can swing their money in a specific way, insofar that they don't have to actually spend any money in taxes and blah blah blah. Yep.
The other thing that was really big in here is that it covers paid sick leave. You know, so that's like one thing. If you genuinely get sick from this, you don't have to, like, if you only get a week of sick time. So at my company, I get 1 week of sick time. I can use vacation as sick time right now if I want to. But this allows for a company to say, hey, we're going to go ahead and give you, you know, a loan to pay for sick leave for employees. Yeah. Right. Yep.
Yeah, so like, because I mean, I believe under the CARES Act, you get 2 weeks. If you are diagnosed with COVID, you get legitimately 2 weeks. And so like, there's all those kinds of things that, you know, they have to kind of deal with. A small business, you know, that can be a big deal. 2 weeks of a human disappearing, covering all the costs and all that kind of stuff. So like, I mean, it really is like in a small business, everyone does 4 or 5 different things that are all essential to keep that business going in a lot of places. And so like little tiny things, you lose the linchpin, the whole machine falls down.
Yep. And see, and here's another important thing, and this is actually, I mean, for the people that put this out, I will say this is not bad. Again, I'm not in agreement that this was a solution, but I do like some of the provisions in here, right? So your loan forgiveness will be reduced if you decrease your full-time headcount. So if you start firing people, your headcount goes down. And like, it's kind of funny because there's some employees that we probably should terminate right now. We're not going to. We're going to work with them and document it to say, hey, because in fairness to that employee too, even if they're a bad worker, we don't want them to be out in the street by themselves, you know, right? Like, it's not good if they do that. The difference is, as long as they're not disrespectful, they're just not in the right seat. Maybe they need to be transferred. But they also talk about if you decrease any salaries under $100K by more than 25%, your loan's going to decrease. Now, I don't like that they don't tell me how much it's going to decrease, but I do like that number
somewhere. But yeah,
and it might be in here and I missed it, but yeah. But I think that's really good, right? Think about that, man. Think about that whole thing, right? Because what they're saying is if you make over 100K, and here's a good, this is great. This is great conversation. If you make over 100K, you should be able to survive on a decreased salary, right? And get by at this current time. And those that aren't A, managing their money well, or B, are, they're taking more liberties with what they're spending than they should.
Or they just bought that one dream house and they just bought it right before everything fell through.
Or two houses, if they own two houses. Yeah, I get it. We should still try and help those type of people too, to some extent. Though I feel less bad if you lose your second house and it's not a family house and it's not a mansion by the sea.
That kind of thing. What I mean is just like I almost tripled my house payment buying the house that I bought, and like my salary is not too bad as far as like covering it all and everything. My wife isn't working. When she starts working, as far as like when they open everything, so like photography can happen, it'll be easier. But like a salary reduction would hit me to the point where mortgage payments and stuff would start to be difficult, because we had an idea of where we were going, and we went top shelf as far as our family is concerned. And so like it would be an interesting situation if I had to deal with a salary a salary reduction of 25% or so.
And that's why they're saying anybody that makes under 100K shouldn't have to have that.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where their provisions could be different. Anybody making over 100K, right, you can't take a 50% decrease unless it leaves you at less than 25% underneath that, right? Mm-hmm. So if you make 150K a year and you go down to 75, you hit that 25%. So they should make it sure that you're bumped up enough that you never hit that. And I get that, people make money. They're allowed to make money. Like, companies can pay whatever they want. But at the same time, what are we going to allow for loan forgiveness? Right? And they could have easily just said, well, screw it. We're going to not give you a interest-free loan or a forgivable loan for that. We'll only give it to you for this portion of it.
Yeah. And that's another thing. It's like the depth and the length of this document is limited due to the time that they had to create it. And so, I mean, in the end, I think they did a pretty good job. I would love to have seen more provisions to make sure that companies who really don't need it couldn't get it. But the second round has made a difference. So I don't know. I hope that there's a way that small business can survive. I hope there's a way that the people can basically get these paychecks and, enjoy the social, the social security net that our government is currently embarking in, this Republican majority social security net that is happening, which is funny how that happens every 10 years or so. The Republicans have to give a bunch of money back.
Weird.
Yeah. So anyways.
So the last piece of this discussion, right, is essentially about what we took a gamble on, right? So they took a gamble on what they're going to give us. They gambled and said, hey, you're going to get a $1,200 plus X amount of dollars per kid, right? That's a gamble. They didn't know whether that would be successful or not. That was a huge gamble. The other gamble that we're kind of talking about here is they gave all these businesses loans, tell them they're going to forgive it. So we essentially, as a taxpayer, we are increasing our national debt for this, which eventually is going to come back to haunt us. And I'm not one against increasing national debt, but essentially this has made this a lot harder to get universal health care to some extent without making a larger cut. And I'm not saying it's unnecessary or it shouldn't have been done, but we could have taken that money and put it into universal health care, and we could have put it into a UBI Act instead of giving it back to businesses and doing all these things, and then looked at where it was going to fall out, right? And that's what this last piece is about, is UBI. And this is, we should have forced Boyce to come on, I guess. But
does one force Boyce to do anything?
In fairness, this is kind of the paramount discussion of this. We have stimulus checks. They have the Emergency Care Act. But would universal health care and UBI just fix this? Can we even get away from unemployment to some extent if we went to a UBI? Could we reduce our unemployment benefits by 50, 60% if everybody just had UBI? I don't know.
It's definitely something that seems to be kind of worthwhile to look into, especially as as I forget how to speak English here. As our
Just go
society
to
moves
Quebecois.
Quebecois, it's good fishing in Quebec.
You know,
In
it's good
Quebec.
fishing.
Um,
There's lots
no,
of good
the
things in Quebec.
yes. Anyways, it's as society moves from like we do everything by hand to more and more automation, and there's going to be a lot more that needs to go on behind the scenes as opposed to everything on the front lines. As we can automate that, robots building other robots building cars, and most of our day-to-day items. This is something that does need to be looked at, just because it does mean that there's going to be a lot of these. I don't like the term low skilled labor. I don't like that term because it really puts a negative spin on it, but basically just the everyday jobs that need to be done in order for our society as we want it to go to exist, as they can be automated and whatnot, like at a lot of retail outlets now, like the big retail stores, you're seeing more self checkouts, so that's reducing the amount of labor that has to go into checking you out at the time. So there's fewer jobs that are going to be available. So something like the UBI would be a great way to at least make sure that you're taking care of the people who aren't able to get in there, and providing healthcare for people who's like their families have to live off of the UBI because they couldn't get this job or that job or whatever, and all depending on where they live. I think it's a better way to address the way society is changing, to give people just a chance to live in the society and contribute to the economy by spending the money. Because let's face it, people who don't make a lot of money, they're not going to go spend that money elsewhere. They're going to spend it in the local economy. And that's why I still don't understand this whole give the billionaires a tax break and they'll invest it here. No, they won't. They're going to take it offshore. They're going to keep it in, they're going to spend it all on their big yachts and I don't know. I'm not rich. I don't know what they all spend money on, but it's a lot of stuff that I don't have. So they're going to go spend it, elsewhere. They're going to go travel and all of that. Not that there's anything wrong with traveling, but a lot of that money is, being taken out of our economy and being put into other economies. And I think that this is
your Amazon, right?
well, that's I think a whole other rebellion we need to have.
Oh, that's kind of what I'm thinking along those lines. Is like the idea of this money going back into the local economy, right? Like these stimulus checks, whatever. What are people usually doing with this money? It's like, I got to order something. I got to go online. What is the easiest place to go online and order something? You probably already have a Prime membership. Plink, 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 plink. Next thing you know, you don't even use Smile.Amazon, you lazy bastards. And you could give some money back to some charities. But the marketplace is being consolidated in power and strength and economics. It all the little marketplaces, the digital marketplaces, the online marketplaces are disappearing. So UBI, the whole idea behind UBI is that in the future, in the year 2000, right? From is that we are going to be benefiting, you and I and everybody else going to be benefiting from the increase in automation. What have we done? We have decreased the amount of labor it takes to create X amount of widgets. We have now there should be the same amount of money to make those widgets. It just takes us less time personally to do that. So we should also still be reaping in the same amount of benefits totally as a society of having X amount of widgets created. And what we're seeing is that we are working the same amount, if not longer and harder, for the same amount, if not lower and lower, because of different market situations and when it comes to the downturns or whatever. And we're not seeing the benefits of the automation that we've been seeing. Who's seeing those benefits? The people at the top. It's just the same
people
thing
making the money.
Yeah, it's people who own that automation. And so the UBI is a good way to offset, kind of like the idea behind the New Deal. And the Green New Deal. It's like a labor New Deal. It's like having a UBI revolution would potentially give the people in this country who have now sacrificed their labor, who would actually get a benefit from the automation of all of this stuff that humans used to do in society. And now it's harder and harder to find a higher paid job, a higher skilled job. they would get some of that money back, and it would go to them as opposed to it would go to the people who own property and all those kinds of things. That UBI is definitely a really good thing to do if you are concerned or worried about the future of the middle class, the future of the lower middle class, the people who are right at the cusp of actually transitioning their place in society. I mean, social mobility and economic mobility used to be a real thing in America when people would say, like, if you work hard enough, you actually too can move up and you could buy that house with a white picket fence. Like nowadays in our society, it's harder and harder to see that as a reality. And so like UBI could be a place where we could kind of boost some of those things. And in the Business Insider article talks about some of the things that what that would do as a boost and a kind of like I like to imagine it like a fire starter or like a Kindle start for like a real economic fire, is that if you gave the people at the bottom the economic strength and security to really spend, like you would see a real growth as far as spending power and quality of life in this country.
I mean, think about in my world, right? And I'm nowhere near the bottom end, right? I'm not anywhere in the middle class really, but I'm definitely not on the bottom end, you know. But this right here, under 130K a year, I'm easily make well under that. If so, for somebody like me, if I got $2,000 a month, which I still think is a little high, but if I got $2,000 a month, that's a guaranteed.
That's a little bit less than the unemployment boost right now.
Yep, that's a guaranteed right now. That is that's guaranteeing my house payment. Plus, I'm going to put an addition on my house once COVID frees up. That pays for that loan. I could pay the loan back faster too, which I guess is not very good for companies.
Just imagine money off interest. Imagine putting that $2,000 a month towards your mortgage.
You could do that too. Yep. Those that don't want
think
an
about
addition,
how fast you could pay your house off. Holy crud!
Think about everybody who you could kill these slumlord rental markets instantaneously. So the people that don't want to own a home or don't have the credit to own a home but get this income could go live in nicer apartments because they don't have to worry about only paying $300-400 a month, for some crap thing. You can essentially kill some of the ghetto areas that we have by fixing slumlords.
But would they just increase the cost of all apartments all over the place?
Well, that's a different discussion.
Yeah. And like all that kind of like price fixing and stuff like that. Like
that doesn't
real estate.
That doesn't always happen, no, Hanna. Yeah. And traditionally speaking, statistics demonstrate that a increase in minimum wage and an increase in pay does not increase inflation in equal parts. And we can have that discussion on the show because I've argued this. I've argued this a lot because that's the common myth that people have, and it does not do that.
Oh yeah, I know.
Now that doesn't mean over time this wouldn't erode some of that and would play a whole different factor, but to begin with, it wouldn't. And here, $2,000 a month, I could buy a new car. I could lease a car. I can
a shot for the big three, American manufacturing. Okay,
yep.
That's a MAGA hat plus there.
Yep, and it's the first thing I would do because the wife and I drive old cars. Like I drive a car till it dies. I no longer have to do that.
And it costs you more to keep a dying car alive than it does to make a payment on it.
Being poor is one of the most expensive things.
I disagree with you on that one. My car has cost me less than $1,500 a year.
Nice.
In repairs.
Well, I think like there are a lot of instances where you have to buy a cheap car, or I don't know how prevalent these are in the States, but we do have here, like there are these auto loan places that are designed for, you bring in 2 paychecks and $100 will approve you. But what they don't tell you is that the credit agencies that they use have interest rates of 30 to 40%. Like I made the mistake of walking into one. Oh yeah, I didn't know until later that this actually looked bad on my credit, and yeah. So the story goes.
You got a Western Sky loan. Why? I don't know if you know about that. That was a $5,000 loan from a Native American reservation that you would have to pay $40,000 to pay it back at minimum payments.
Makes sense. Anyways, so I walked in. They said, "How much are you looking to spend per month?" I said under 400. And then just after the interest rates and everything, I was looking at spending $550 a month for a car that was already 10 years old at the time. And had I gone with that, I'd be in the hole because I ended up going to a Ford dealership recommended by my parents, who they had worked with the sales guy before. And so he was able to get me in a really great deal. I was spending $200 less per month for a car that I was leasing. And it's brand new. Everything's under warranty. I had to have some work done. All of it was under warranty. Perfect. And had I gone with the option that, somebody with bad credit goes for, well, I would have been shit out of luck. Anyway, sorry, Tanner, I kind of derailed you there.
You're fine. No, it's the same thing though. But you're right. Like you wouldn't have to have those crappy car loans, and it would put bad businesses out of business. That's what it would do, and that's what we should be looking to. Is when we talk about trickle down economics that don't work, we should really be talking about some of the reasons they don't. And one of the easy low hanging fruit is because you have these bottom end snipers that are coming in, taking that low hanging fruit and screwing people over. And it's making it worse. The difference is we should be working with those people to help them fix their credit. You should be immediately be allowed into these payment programs, these loan programs and regulations and all sorts of other things. And
did you guys have any finance classes in school?
No.
We had them, but they were optional. So
yeah.
I was going to say, like, there's no finance education. I didn't have a class that taught me APR and monthly interest rates until I was in college.
Oh, no, they don't. And that's a whole thing that the MLM industry tries to focus on is just the fact that nobody really learns anything beyond basic terms. A buddy of mine is involved with one of them, and he had me read one of their books, and I was just like, dude, this is all just like, I'm reading this going, well, I'm pretty sure I learned about this. And I just like being aware of my reactions to it. I was like, this is literally just playing off of my misconceptions and the fact that I can't remember what I learned in high school. And all you guys are doing is assuming that I'm going to go, oh, wow, you guys must really know what you're talking about. You're using terms I learned once.
Yeah.
That little bit of knowledge.
It's predatory. It is predatory. Like
incredibly.
And all that kind of stuff is dangerous stuff.
So we coming back to this, right? You're right. All that we would kill that low hanging fruit. We would get rid of some of those poor businesses that should not be around. We would get rid of these cash advantage stores that don't need to exist. And the difference is if we start offering this, we can then discuss whether we want universal healthcare or any of that socialized type medicine or not, which we should still do. But even if we don't to begin with, this immediately fixes certain things. Because, and I'll give an example. I have a friend who is very tight with his money, except for when he wants to buy frivolous material. Like he loves music and concerts and all these things, and he spent $400 on this Pink Floyd box set. Now, I will tell you what he did for it. He went and scrapped metal for 3 months to collect that on his Saturday. That's what he spent his time doing.
He's scrap metal now when scrap metal is like
this
zero?
This is before.
Oh, okay.
This is before the coronavirus. But
the Rona.
This was like a year ago. But he was doing that, right? That was what he justified spending his large amounts on, right? He didn't put himself in debt for any of this stuff. And if he did put himself in debt because he didn't have the immediate on-hand cash, he immediately worked to pay it back, right? And so the idea, though, is that individual who's that tight with money, he refuses to go to the doctor 80% of the time. You know why? Yeah. Because he can't afford it. He doesn't want an $800, $900 bill. If he does, he'd rather have it for a Pink Floyd box set. Now, you and I both know as you get older, that's probably stupid. And in the long run, you should go get your healthcare taken care of. But I get his point. I can't stand when I had my ambulance ride, it would cost me $3,000 for a midnight ambulance ride. $3,000.
Yeah.
And I have health insurance. I have health insurance. But by the time they got done EKG scanning me, and then what they don't tell you is that the hospital outsources all that. So they're all third-party companies. And by the way, you can't put all those in a collection, like in a bin. Like if Spectrum Health bills you, you can just pay monthly on it, whatever you can afford. But they don't tell you all these outside parties don't fit into this. So when you start paying one, you don't realize, there's another $1,500. Yeah, and that's the problem.
Nobody told you, hon, that that's going to be out of network, and you're going to have to pay that one with your blood, and we're going to drain you every Tuesday night.
Exactly. And that's the problem here.
Truth.
And that's what
Like,
this
UBI would
talks
help
about.
with that. Yeah,
Exactly.
UBI would basically boost that difference. And I really do think that this would be a really, really great thing. And I mean, there's multiple examples of cash boosting for small societies and stuff all over the world. And in the end, people were like, oh, they're going to spend it on tobacco and alcohol. And they found that the people actually spent the money on good things. They spent it on stuff to grow their small businesses. They spent it on, increasing their homes and fixing things that were dangerous and unhealthy. There's a bunch of really great things that UBI could be used for that would be a major boost to society, and that average people, can actually be trusted. They really can. Just spend money the right way, except for some people who got their stimulus check and decided to go on Craigslist and buy a hot tub. Those people.
Well,
But okay, hold on, Hannah. I'm going to stop you right there, because if they had the money extra, like I've been working this whole time, my stimulus checks just went into my savings account. Just so you know,
that's what mine did too.
But I could tell you, I could tell you right now,
700 of it on a guy that's going to cut down some trees in my yard the next day.
There you go. And I'm probably going to spend $500 or $600 on a play set for my kids if this continues to go on and I can't go to a park.
Yeah.
Sorry. But you like, not to be a dick, but you got to be careful when you judge people for what they're buying, because like, in fairness to that guy, like maybe they didn't need the money.
Well, that's the thing. In that case, that situation, they don't, and they've actually been, relatively good with their money. And it's like, but like I know another guy who sells, industrial equipment. He's like plow equipment and stuff like that. And he's been like, dude, I've been getting orders like crazy from like just small orders and stuff like that. And it's just like they're definitely spending their stimulus money here. So it's like small business stuff or whatever. Like, but like this thing, just like as long as people are spending it, taking into account what it is and trying to stretch it and make it last as long as it can, then that's awesome. And then it's like the UBI argument. It's like most people do that, and so I'm hoping that.
Pizza.
What's that?
I won't lie. I did buy pizza twice for my family
But
from a really good pizza place.
There's the difference between like a casually, like, we got a little bit of extra, so why don't we do something a little nice for us while we're taking care of the other important needs, as opposed to, oh shit, I just got my entire welfare check. Well, let's see, hookers blow. All right, I got my Saturday night, and then
That's the Greg Giraldo. That's the Greg Giraldo method, right? That's his old joke. He said, and in 2008, when everybody was freaking out and yelling at the internet because their 401ks exploded, and he's like, well, it seems like spending all my money on hookers and blow for the last 20 years wasn't such a bad investment now, was it? And of course, Greg Giraldo is now dead, so I do think that may have been yes, but either way. But yeah, so I don't know, are we gonna do any quick saves tonight, or are we gonna
Absolutely. Let's do our quick saves.
Who wants to start it?
I'll let you go first.
There you go. You get to. The other person I said you to.
Which is me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't done a whole lot of non-belief stuff lately. I really haven't. Like it's just kind of like one of those things where, like, I've moved past like the battle of like the same logistic circles over and over, and I sat down and I watched a Sam Harris and Shapiro video on YouTube.
Oh my god, that too. Oh,
it hurts. Ben Shapiro is like kind of like listening to like a new conservative. So like it's like watching Ben and Sam kind of go at it to each other was kind of like watching someone who's new to like hyper belief in Judaism, which Ben is a Jew, and so he's a Judeo-Christian supporter, but Jewish as far as theology is concerned, and like just watching like the special steps and like the all the dancing and stuff between the two of them, and how calmly and comfortably Sam worked his way through all of Ben Shapiro's arguments. Like it was a nice thing to see. I know Chris probably has moved down from Sam Harris. I personally have as well myself. He does have some arguments that are fundamentally problematic, but like in the end, like Sam himself, he does make some pretty good some good arguments as far as what logic is concerned. So
How's that for logic?
yeah. Well, I
Anyway.
mean, yeah. So we have one person here who is completely closed off from any kind of actual conversation, who is farting all over the camera and likes to shit all over some of the bands I listen to. But
I do that. In fairness,
Yeah.
so you do
Yeah.
have some
and
shitty taste in music.
on top of that, he does it right before the show ends, so the deaf kid doesn't get to say anything. He just sits there and goes, "Yes, this is great. I'm having
Look,
so much
all
fun."
right, if you're gonna chide me, I'm sorry. I'm gonna jump in here and tell you, Sam Harris is a piece of shit. He might have good ideas, but if there's other people that have the exact same idea, fuck that dude. Fuck him. There's no reason to give him a platform or a stage. He's nothing more than a goddamn a fucking sexual harasser, enhancer. That's what he wants to be. Get his ass off the stage. I'm telling you right now. Do you share the same views he does? Are you close to an intelligence level? Have we had the same debates similar to what he has?
I'm not certain what you're
Yes.
asking me.
I'm asking you if you are close in your intelligence level to Sam Harris, and if you aren't, is there somebody else that we could follow that has similar ideas? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just saying that we could have you can also see someone who's making logistical arguments against whatever said belief system that is happening, and you can say, yeah, Sam Harris may be a problem, but it's nice and comfortable to watch someone completely legitimately take apart, the believer's argument.
It is.
It is.
But it's not comfortable when it's like when we look at Biden. Here you go. I'm going to relate it to Biden. I have to vote for Biden to some extent or vote for a third party candidate, one of the two, because I ain't voting for Trump. Biden makes me sick to my stomach. I cannot stand him as an individual, and I cannot stand the fact that he's getting away with essentially being a sexual harasser and now running for president again, because we're just in the same freaking scenario we were in. I get your point. I watch Christopher Hitchens videos, and even he can be cringeworthy sometimes, in some of the things he says, but he's also dead. And the question becomes is there another philosopher around that shares similar style of views that can tear somebody apart that's worthwhile? And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm sure
you dragged me into this, by the way.
I'm sure there is, but I don't see them out there. They don't get any freaking time. And so seeing someone who's actually taking apart Ben Shapiro, who is the darling of conservative media, who doesn't get any actual attention when it comes to the atheist community, it's nice to see that. And it was a comforting video to watch him get basically taken apart. Sam Harris can be a piece of shit. I can separate the person from their views sometimes when it comes to the arguments, because logic is logic. And as much as it sucks to be coming from a jackass idiot, it can also be logic. And that's kind of how I treat it. And so hopefully, I would love to see people like Dan Dennett going out there and breaking people apart. But I don't have that, because Dan Dennett is 9,000 years old and he's dealing with robotics. And so this is a situation where I haven't dealt much with religion. This is the video that came through recently. And as much as Sam Harris is problematic, it's there, and it's a accompanying video to just see something going on and basically somebody breaking apart some of these religious arguments. I've heard so many people living in Ohio now that all I'm hearing is basically these arguments consistently ad nauseum, and Sam breaks them apart very comfortably, and it is something to be said that is something that we do need. I would love to see someone replace him. I haven't seen anybody step up to the charge yet.
And to play devil's advocate against Tanner here, the one thing that we do try to see more from, or that we do try to call for more from, our opponents is, self-policing, where, like they're looking at the guy beside them who's being a total jackass and being like, oh, calm down. Like you're kind of an embarrassment to our side. You're not making us look good. And here's why. Here's what you're doing. Here's why you're problematic. So, I know Shapiro and Harris are kind of all buddy with like Peterson and Rogan nowadays. Like they're all part of this whole group. And like Peterson posted this picture of them plus Paul or Dave Rubin and a couple of other edgelord circle jerks, whatever. And he just titled it, smart people. And it's like, get out of here. Like, just stop. So it's nice to see that at least Harris is not just completely standing behind Shapiro, but actually like, maybe taking him to task in bad argumentation. Now, having not seen it, I can't vouch for it. I might watch it tomorrow on my work. I don't know. I get a little outraged, so I might need something else to think about to scream at. But that would be something that would be nice if he's actually like calling him out and taking him to task for his not so great beliefs.
Well,
Would be
that video was just all it was theological, and so like it didn't deal with a lot of the things that Sam Harris is known for being relatively aggressive and not very humanistic about.
Well, like his whole Peter Boghossian diatribe crap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll leave it alone, and I'll grant you that comforting things in times of trials are comforting things. And I will go back and listen to Christopher Hitchens a lot of times, more often than maybe I should, for the exact same reason. And he was Hitchens, I don't think was alive long enough to be as problematic, and I don't think he was as stupid as Sam Harris was when it comes to circumventing. And I say only stupid because of the fact that, so like here we go. Now we're going to go on a side tangent, but
Hitchens admitted his Iraq stuff. Like he openly, like,
and his weird women.
I don't know if Sam would be able to do that.
Yeah. And exactly. And so like in business, there's like three things that we talk about. Are you business smart, right? Are you humble? And are you hungry? Right. So like Sam Harris, I don't think is very hungry personally, because he probably makes enough money. He doesn't have to be, but at the exact same time, he's not people smart. He doesn't understand that interaction level. Christopher Hitchens did. That's where in my opinion, there's a difference in philosopher there. Christopher Hitchens understood when he took the conservative line, understood why he took it, how he was arguing for it. And there's a huge difference. So like even though he didn't think women were funny, he supported the Iraq war. And you're like, these are things we are pretty against, honestly. But, I can understand, like, especially during this time, I've recently started listening to, God is Not Great Again, right? Because the arguments in it are very, very founded, and is a comforting book for me to read.
And that's what this conversation was like, it was concise and controlled into those specific locations. Like, it didn't go out.
You baited, man.
Well, either way, so like this was a theological conversation. It was very tight and concise and specific, and that's what, like, I haven't talked literally about religion itself in a long time, and listened to the arguments against, and listened to the new arguments that conservatives been formulating. So it was definitely, I thought was useful as far as thinking about. Well, I mean, we are the Celador skeptical perspectives when it comes to faith, because like I found myself just drifting off into politics, and so it was nice to bring back into the kind of what got us all together in the first place.
Fair enough. Keith?
So my quick save this week is something that my wife pointed out to me, and she's been doing, since obviously you can't really be going out, and for a lot of fitness stuff you got to be kind of like either just going out for walks or not really doing anything outside. You got to work out at home. And she found this site. Now it is an app called Down Dog. The main website is downdogapp.com, DOWNDOGAPP.com. And when you go to that site, because you can access that from your internet browser, and you can find the 6 different apps that you can get just for this company. You have one account, and from what I understand, it goes across all of them. Basically, the appeal of this is that these are all workouts you can do from home. They have varying skill levels. I'll go into that in a sec. But right now, what they have is, in response to many school closures taking place, they're offering free access for everybody, for all new users, until June 1st. So you don't have to like put a credit card in or anything like that. So you've got just over another month of doing basically everything they've offered for free. Now they've extended that for teachers and students as well as healthcare professionals. So for those 3 groups, it goes until July 1st, just because, teachers and students, they're very important, and healthcare professionals are crucial in helping us get through this time. So giving them a chance to, do a little bit of self-love, self-care. Now, what they offer, as I was saying, 6 different apps that you can follow. There is 3 of them are based on yoga. There's just yoga. There's yoga for beginners and prenatal yoga. The yoga for beginners, you can go through, you can adjust your difficulty level if you want to focus, how long you kind of want to lay in the final pose where you're just relaxing, all of that. But what they also offer is HIIT training sessions. So that's high intensity interval training, sorry. They offer a ballet style called Barre, Barre, and then a 7-minute workout that you can kind of customize to specific parts of your body or full body, all that type of thing. And all around, it doesn't require much equipment. So if you're really tight, there's a lot more body weight exercises, and it'll give you different ways to modify the workouts if, say, you don't have a specific range of motion, or if your strength for a specific movement just isn't quite there. So for somebody who's, just looking for something to kind of hold them over until they can get their asses back into the gym, they might try something a little more advanced, whereas somebody who, kind of really only just walks and all of that, but is looking to improve, they've got you covered.
Fair enough. And that's probably something I should get back into, because I was doing pretty decent at going to the gym until Corona hit and everything just fell apart. And I've at least gained 5 pounds in the last 2 months. So, because the hotels I was at, like, shut down almost beginning of March. They started shutting down their workout centers. So it sucked for me. And I hate running. I'll be honest. I hate running so much. It's like the bane of my existence. Like, I'll do the elliptical machine and I don't like it a lot, but I'll do it. And I like the bike, and then I do strengthening exercises sometimes. But yeah, I've easily, you can see it in the double chin here. I've easily gained 5 pounds, if not a little bit more than that, But
the camera's not adding it, so you're fine.
It does a little bit. So, you know how it is. But happens. That's just the thing, with that whole thing is, like, I agree with you. Like, and I'll be honest, like, our kids' school is doing some of those things now, this website, but I'm kind of tempted to take it and send it to the teachers and say, hey, is this something of value? Can we put this in our PE program instead?
Yeah, cool. Absolutely. And so, instead of forcing kids into uncomfortable group sport activities, giving them something more solo. Sorry.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%, man. That's exactly what we want. And I agree with you. I would rather, if I was told or taught how to exercise way back in elementary school versus this forced sports thing, I would be in a lot better shape. I'll be honest with you. If I had dedicated as much time to playing video games, or working out as video games, I would not be what the size I am today. But
go sports ball.
Yeah. So as we wrap up my quick save for the week, my quick save for the week. It's weird. I have 3 computers.
I just thought my hearing aids were reacting.
Yeah. So my quick save for the week is a little different, right? It's, mine's not serious. It's when we talk about fun things. I've been playing a board game called Star Wars X-Wing, right? And that's been a big thing for me. And there's a community called Tabletop Simulator that you can purchase. And I've talked about it on the show before. And I've been actually playing a lot of Star Wars X-Wing on Tabletop Simulator. And I have a good friend of mine that got into X-Wing about the same time I did 3 months ago. And so we've been practicing and learning how to get better and all sorts of things. And I don't know, like, the problem is we never get enough people to say, hey, we want to learn about this. I'd be happy to demonstrate Tabletop Simulator, but it's an amazing online application for $20 that you can play board games remotely with people. It's amazing. D&D groups, it's awesome for all sorts of things. But anyway, so that's what I've been playing a lot with. And there's a group called the Gold Squadron Podcast, and I put their link in the description. And essentially it's their YouTube channel. The guy does one podcast a week, and they do a lot of other video type shit with it. So anyway, that's my thing for the week. Thank you all so much for joining us. As much shit as Hanna and I give each other over whether we're my computer died and there goes the sound. As much shit as Hanna and I give each other over the over who we like and who we don't like, we're still friends. And I will take pot shots at your crappy metal beliefs, but he could easily take pot shots at mine and some of the electronic stuff that I listen to, like Nicki Minaj and stuff like that. So anyway, as we wrap the show up, thank you all so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with another episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you, everyone.
Wow.